Hillary Clinton hints at Trump's guilty verdict with new merch. Turns out she was right about everything. We recently had some new merch made based on a phrase I hear a lot, Clinton shared on Instagram after Trump's guilty verdict. The former presidential candidate, 76, appeared to address the former president's guilty verdict on Thursday, May 30th after taking the podium at the Vital Voices Global Leadership Awards in Washington, D.C. In a video shared on X, formerly known as Twitter, of the event, Clinton could be seen getting applause as she took the stage. She thanked the audience before quipping, "Anything going on today?" appearing to reference his criminal trial. The audience could be heard cheering in response. She also shared an Instagram post promoting a mug that featured a painted version of herself sipping tea with the words, "Turns out she was right about everything," printed on top. "We recently had some new merch made based on a phrase I hear a lot," she captioned the photo of the mug. The design happened to be finalized today. The words seemingly stemmed from Clinton's previous comments. She previously called Trump an illegitimate president in a CBS Morning interview in 2019 and suggested that he may have had a hand in rigging the 2016 elections in his favor. "I believe he understands that the many varying tactics they used, from voter suppression and voter purging to hacking to the false stories, he knows that there were just a bunch of different reasons why the election turned out like it did," she said at the time. The Manhattan District Attorney's Office argued during Trump's criminal trial that he falsified documents in order to mask hush money payments to Stormy Daniels in the final days of his 2016 presidential election. In falsifying the records, the DA's office argued, Trump was more broadly attempting to bury evidence of an illegal conspiracy to influence the 2016 election. Trump was ultimately found guilty in a New York court on Thursday, May 30th, of 34 felony counts of falsifying business records, becoming the first president in history to become a convicted felon. Following the guilty verdict, Trump told reporters of the trial, "This was a disgrace. This was a rigged trial by a conflicted judge who was corrupt." He also vowed that he was an innocent man and would fight the verdict to the end, per CBS News. Trump faces up to 4 years in prison, though he is also eligible for a lesser probation sentence and a fine. He is expected to appeal the verdict. Former President Donald Trump, who now awaits sentencing after being convicted on Thursday on 34 charges in his hush money trial, told Fox News that he never called for his 2016 presidential campaign rival, Hillary Clinton, to be sent to jail. During an interview, portions of which aired Sunday on Fox and Friends Weekend, Trump was asked about a call often heard at his campaign rallies, "Lock her up." The chant is perhaps one of the most popular among Trump supporters, and it refers to demands by his voters to imprison Clinton over her use of a private email server while Secretary of State. "You famously said, regarding Hillary Clinton, 'Lock her up.' You declined to do that as president," Fox co-host Will Cain told Trump. "I beat her," Trump replied. "It's easier when you win. And they always said lock her up, and I felt and I could have done it, but I felt it would have been a terrible thing. To me." Trump falsely claims he never called for Hillary Clinton to be locked up. "Lock her up" is perhaps one of the most popular chants among Trump supporters, and he agreed with it on several occasions. Former President Donald Trump, who now awaits sentencing after being convicted on Thursday on 34 charges in his hush money trial, told Fox News that he never called for his 2016 presidential campaign rival, Hillary Clinton, to be sent to jail. During an interview, portions of which aired Sunday on Fox and Friends Weekend, Trump was asked about a call often heard at his campaign rallies, "Lock her up." The chant is perhaps one of the most popular among Trump supporters, and it refers to demands by his voters to imprison Clinton over her use of a private email server while Secretary of State.
Regarding Hillary Clinton, lock her up. You declined to do that as president.
They all said lock her up, and I felt, and I could have done it, but I felt it would have been a terrible thing. And then this happened to me. Hillary Clinton, I didn't say lock her up, but the people don't say lock her up, lock her up. Okay, then we won. And I said pretty openly, I say, all right, come on, just relax. Let's go. We got to make our country great.
You know what? I've been saying, let's just beat her on November 8th. But you know what? No. You know what? I'm starting to agree with you, I'll tell you.
Okay, here's one. Just came out. Lock her up is right. No. You got to speak to Jeff Sessions about that. Crooked Hillary. And then she went 3 weeks later. Agreed.
You famously said, regarding Hillary Clinton, lock her up. You declined to do that as president, Fox co-host Will Cain told Trump. I beat her, Trump replied. It's easier when you win. And they always said lock her up, and I felt I could have done it, but I felt it would have been a terrible thing. And then this happened to me. Trump then asserted that he never called for Clinton's jailing at his 2016 campaign stops, and said he's accepted the possibility he could face jail or house arrest after being convicted of 34 felony counts Friday, but also warned that he's not sure the public would stand for it if he were to face any harsh penalties. Fox and Friends Weekend aired a 90-minute interview with the former president Sunday, 2 days after he was convicted in Manhattan criminal court of 34 counts of falsification of business records related to hush money payments made to porn star Stormy Daniels ahead of the 2016 presidential election, in which he faced Clinton. Fox host Will Cain brought up Trump's calls of lock her up during his 2016 campaign against Clinton. What crimes he wished to see his opponent imprisoned for was never made clear, and Clinton was never charged with a crime, but Trump denied he ever joined his followers in repeating the now famous phrase, despite having done so on multiple occasions. As supporters chanted the phrase at a rally in October of 2016, Trump responded, lock her up is right, and in January 2020 he repeated the claim at a rally in Toledo, you should lock her up, I'll tell you. Trump said. In the interview Sunday, Trump said, I could have done it, in regards to jailing Clinton, but added, I felt it would have been a terrible thing. But then this happened to me. Trump is set to be sentenced on his felony counts on July 11, days before the Republican National Convention, and faces a sentence that could range from a fine of up to $5,000 to 4 years in prison for each of his 34 felony convictions, and, while jail time appears unlikely, it is possible. Trump told Fox News he's okay with the possibility of jail time, but also warned it would be tough for the public to take, and said a sentence to prison or house arrest could push supporters to a breaking point. During her 2016 presidential campaign, Clinton was under investigation for her alleged mishandling of classified materials. A federal investigation found that Clinton used a private email server to conduct government business when she was Secretary of State, a violation of records retention law. Dozens of email chains were found to have contained sensitive information, and some of those contained top secret information. The investigation was a sticking point for Trump and his allies during the campaign, with the future president calling the scandal a disgrace and telling Clinton, you ought to be ashamed, during the second presidential debate. In July of 2016, former FBI Director James Comey said the agency found no clear evidence that Clinton intentionally violated the law, but that she and her team were extremely careless in their handling of very sensitive, highly classified information. Clinton was never charged with a crime. Trump is currently under indictment on 40 felony counts in his own classified documents case. He is accused of mishandling White House documents and obstructing the government's investigation into them. He is charged with the willful retention of national defense information, obstruction, concealing documents, and making false statements and representations. Trump's warnings of a breaking point surrounding his sentencing were vague, but there have been threats of violence surrounding his conviction. Online, supporters of the former president have called for violence and harassment against the jurors, judge, and prosecutors involved in his case, with at least one post including the address of Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg, while others mentioned the purported addresses of jurors, NBC News reported. The posts reportedly appeared on the same websites Trump supporters used to coordinate the attack on the U.S. Capitol building on January 6, 2021, which was spurred by the president's calls to reject the 2020 election results. Hundreds of people were injured in the attack, including more than 100 police officers, and one person died after within 36 hours, one of a drug overdose, and 3 of natural causes. Hundreds of rioters pleaded guilty, with more than 200 sentenced to jail time, and a House committee blamed Trump for triggering the riots in an 845-page report released in December of 2022. While Donald Trump's family and allies slammed the historic hush money guilty verdict against the former president, writer E. Jean Carroll and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton's reactions garnered attention of the netizens for their reactions on jury's decision. E. Jean Carroll and Hillary Clinton's subtle digs at Trump after hush money conviction go viral. During the 23rd Annual Global Leadership Awards, which were hosted by the nonprofit Vital Voices Global Partnership in Washington, Clinton made a veiled reference to Trump's conviction.
As you come on to the page, kindly hit the like bell. And subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so as yet. And don't forget to put on the notification bell, so you can be notified when I drop the next video. Thank you.
Clinton, who faced a defeat against Trump in the 2016 election, addressed the audience asking, "Anything going on today?" After the crowd burst out laughing and cheering, the ex-Secretary of State continued, "Well, I have to tell you, there's nowhere I'd rather be than right here." A video of Hillary posted on X has garnered over 1 million, with one netizen commenting, "No, just a typical day. You know, now that I think about it, Trump does seem a bit angrier than usual." On the day of Trump's conviction, Clinton took to Instagram to post about new products for her Onward Together initiative, which she formed to help leaders advocating for progressive principles and preserving democracy. The latest merchandise is a mug featuring a faceless Clinton drinking from a teacup with the words, "Turns out she was right about everything." The design happened to be finalized today, she stated in her post. The mug pitch from the former First Lady comes after Trump became the first former president to be convicted of a crime. A Manhattan jury, composed of 12 New Yorkers, declared Trump guilty of manipulating financial documents in connection with a hush money payment delivered by his longtime fixer and former attorney, Michael Cohen, to adult film star Saul Eni to the 2016 presidential election. The $22 ceramic mugs feature an illustration of Clinton sipping from a cup with the phrase, "Turns out she was right about everything," printed on it in blue writing. Clinton said proceeds from the sales would benefit her political action organization. "With your purchase, you'll support Onward Together groups defending democracy, and get a pretty great mug to sip tea from," the former First Lady said. The mug pitch from Trump's 2016 rival in the White House race came after the 45th president became the first former commander-in-chief to be convicted of a felony. A jury of 12 New Yorkers found Trump guilty of falsifying business records in connection with a hush money payment his former fixer, Michael Cohen, made to porn actor Stormy Daniels ahead of the 2016 presidential election, which Clinton lost to Trump. In the hours after the verdict, the former New York senator delivered a speech at the Vital Voices Global Partnership's annual awards gala in Washington. At the top of her remarks, Clinton, the group's co-founder, deadpanned to the audience, "Anything going on today?" and grinned. It's not the first time that Clinton has eyed a fundraising opportunity and a potential chance to troll the ex-president, when Trump's legal woes have dominated headlines. In 2022, she highlighted a line of hats bearing the phrase, "but her emails," following a report that Trump disposed of documents in the toilet of the White House. She hopped the hats again last year following an announcement of a federal indictment over his handling of classified documents. Hillary Clinton's brief reaction to news of Donald Trump's conviction on all 34 charges in his criminal hush money trial got a big reaction from her audience on Thursday. And she didn't even mention his name. "Thank you so much," Clinton said as she took the stage at the Vital Voices Global Festival in Washington, then added with a smile, "Anything going on today?" Clinton paused for more than 10 seconds as the audience cheered and applauded, but did not otherwise refer to Trump as she continued with the event. Donald J. Trump has become the first U.S. president to be convicted of a felony. In a historic decision, a 12-person Manhattan jury found the former president guilty on all 34 counts of falsifying business records in an effort to disguise a hush money payment made to adult film actress Stormy Daniels before the 2016 election. Trump is also the first major party candidate, and the 2024 presumptive Republican presidential nominee to run for president as a felon. Here's what the guilty verdict means for Trump. What could Trump's punishment be? Judge Juan Merchant scheduled Trump's sentencing for July 11 at 10 a.m. ET when he'll decide whether the former president's punishment will include prison time. Trump was convicted on 34 counts, which means he could face a maximum of 4 years in prison for each count, totaling a maximum prison sentence of 136 years. But New York State caps prison sentences at 20 years for this type of offense. If the judge decides to issue prison time for more than one conviction, Merchant will also have to decide if Trump's sentence will run concurrently or consecutively, one after another. Legal experts say it's unlikely that Trump would face jail time because Trump does not have a criminal record and the charges against him are nonviolent felonies. Merchant could impose other punishments instead of prison time, such as probation. Trump would have to report to the New York City Department of Probation in person on a regular basis, which would create a major scheduling snafu for the GOP presidential candidate on the campaign trail. If Trump committed other crimes under probation, he could be sent immediately to jail. The columnist had filed 2 cases against the former president, accusing him of sexually assaulting her and then defaming her. In May 2023, a jury awarded Carroll $5 million after determining that Trump physically assaulted her in 1996 and slandered her by claiming she lied about it. In January 2024, a jury directed Trump to pay $83 million in damages to her for defamation. This week, Carroll's lawyer Roberta Kaplan hinted at the potential of pursuing a third defamation lawsuit after Trump launched another diatribe saying he had never met Carroll except for a handshake. Trump's sentencing, which could include prison, in the hush money case will be announced on July 11th. Trump's conviction also means the charges against him are punishable by up to $5,000 per offense. If Judge Merchan decides to go that route, Trump could face up to $170,000 in fines. Merchan could also issue a conditional discharge. In such a scenario, Trump would be free and not require probation supervision as long as he doesn't get into additional trouble. Can Trump run for president and serve in the White House as a convicted felon? Yes. A guilty felony conviction doesn't prevent Trump from running for president. Under Article 2 of the U.S. Constitution, there are only 3 qualifications that need to be met for the office of the presidency. The person must be at least 35 years old, be a natural-born citizen and have lived in the U.S. for at least 14 years. It would be a different story if Trump were charged with crimes of an insurrection under Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. Such an offense would disqualify him from holding public office if found guilty. Could Trump pardon himself in this case if he's elected president? No, he could not pardon himself in this New York case or in his Georgia election interference case. The powers of the presidential pardon don't extend to state crimes, and the President of the United States can only pardon federal crimes, according to Article 2, Section 2, of the Constitution. In the Manhattan hush money case, only New York Governor Kathy Hochul could pardon him. That would be highly unlikely given that she is a Democrat. Can Trump vote for himself in the November election? Trump is registered to vote in Florida. Convicted felons can only vote in the state after they have completed their sentence, which could be prison time or paying a fine. However, Florida also honors the voting laws in the state where the felony conviction occurred, which in this case is New York. In New York State, convicted felons are not allowed to vote only when they are imprisoned. So unless Trump is behind bars on election day, which is unlikely, then he'll probably be able to vote for himself. Can Trump appeal the convictions? Yes, and Trump's legal team plans to appeal the guilty convictions. Trump attorney Todd Blanche said on CNN Thursday evening that the appeal of the convictions would be filed as soon as we can. After Trump's sentencing in July, his defense team will have 30 days to file a notice of appeal, and then they'll have 6 months to file the appeal. Another Trump attorney, Will Scharf, told Fox News that the former president's legal team is considering all options for an appeal. This case is replete with reversible error going back to the very first day, continuing through jury instructions, Scharf said. Every aspect of this case is ripe for appeal. We are going to appeal as quickly as we can. We will seek expedited review of this case. When they do, it remains to be seen if Merchan orders a stay in Trump's sentence, or puts a pause on it, until the appeals process plays out, which could go beyond Election Day. What about Trump's gag order? Judge Merchan issued a gag order on Trump before the trial began on March 26 that barred him, or directing others, from publicly speaking about jurors, trial witnesses, lawyers and aides, court staffers and family members of the previously mentioned people. The gag order doesn't prevent Trump from making statements about Judge Merchan or Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg, whose office brought the case. Merchan added a provision to the gag order on April 1 that barred Trump from talking about Merchan and Bragg's family members. Trump had violated the gag order 10 times during the trial and was forced to pay a total of $10,000 in fines. It remains to be seen when the gag order will be lifted. What about Trump's other legal troubles? The former president is facing 3 other criminal cases, which are unlikely to go to trial before Election Day. Georgia election interference case. Last August, state prosecutors brought charges against Trump and 18 of his allies for their alleged efforts to overturn the results of the 2020 election in the state of Georgia. The case is currently caught up in appeals regarding District Attorney Fani Willis being allowed to stay on the case and 6 counts against Trump being thrown out. A trial date hasn't been set. Federal election interference. Last August, Special Prosecutor Jack Smith charged Trump with 4 criminal counts over his alleged efforts to overturn the results of the 2020 election after he lost. This case is on hold until the Supreme Court rules on whether Trump can claim presidential immunity in the case. Federal classified documents case. In a separate case, Smith brought charges against Trump for allegedly mishandling classified documents at his Mar-a-Lago estate in Palm Beach, Florida, after he left the White House. The case was scheduled to go to trial in federal court in Florida, but U.S. District Judge Aileen Cannon said the trial was indefinitely postponed due to ongoing legal issues. In 2018, the New York Times reported that Trump wanted to ask the Justice Department to prosecute both Clinton and former FBI Director James Comey, but he was dissuaded by others in his administration. White House lawyer Don McGahn told Trump he didn't have the authorization to pursue prosecution in the first place. McGahn asked White House staff to write up a memo that included the possible repercussions for attempting to do so, including impeachment. Trump remains free on his own recognizance. He will have to be back in the Manhattan courtroom on July 11th, when he is set to be sentenced. That is just days before the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee, where GOP leaders, who remain steadfast in their support of Trump, are expected to formally make him their nominee for the November election. Before sentencing, Trump will be interviewed for a pre-sentence report that Judge Juan M. Merchan will use to help decide his punishment. The report is typically prepared by a probation officer, a social worker, or a psychologist working for the probation department who interviews the defendant and possibly that person's family and friends, as well as people affected by the crime. Pre-sentence reports include a defendant's personal history, criminal record, and recommendations for sentencing. Trump has no prior convictions. Trump is charged in 3 other criminal cases, but it's possible none of them will go to trial before the election. The 2020 election interference case in Washington, for example, remains on hold while the U.S. Supreme Court weighs Trump's claim that he is immune from prosecution for actions taken as commander-in-chief. It's not clear. That will be up to the judge, who Trump has repeatedly accused of being biased against him. Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg, who brought the case, refused to say Thursday whether prosecutors will seek prison time. Each count of falsifying business records is punishable by up to 4 years behind bars, but it's possible that Trump will get only fines or probation. New York court records and newspaper archives show defendants convicted of the charge are seldom sentenced to prison for that offense alone. Often, the charge is coupled with more serious felonies such as grand larceny. And even if the judge sentences him to time behind bars, his lawyers would almost certainly push the judge to allow the former president to remain free until he exhausts his appeals. Trump faces the threat of more serious prison time in the 3 other cases. For example, the most serious charges in Trump's Washington and Georgia election interference cases carry maximum 20-year sentences. There are no restrictions on his travel at this point either, so he can continue to campaign normally. Trump attorney Todd Blanche said on the Today Show Friday, "We're going to appeal, and we're going to win on appeal." Trump's lawyers laid the groundwork throughout the trial to challenge the verdict on multiple issues. Blanche suggested they will challenge the judge's decision not to recuse himself. Trump has repeatedly argued Merchan should not have presided over the case, citing cash he's given to Democrats and the fact that his daughter is a party consultant. Merchan has acknowledged making several small donations to Democratic causes during the 2020 campaign, including $15 to Trump's Democratic rival, Joe Biden, but rejected Trump's claims he cannot fairly preside over the case. Trump's lawyers may also challenge rulings from the judge they claim unfairly hampered his defense, including limiting the testimony of an expert witness they wanted to put on the stand. Could he pardon himself? No. It's a state conviction, so Trump would not be able to pardon himself if he were to become president again. Presidential pardons apply only to federal crimes. And it's a legally untested question as to whether Trump would even have the power to pardon himself if he's convicted in the federal cases. No president has attempted to do so while in office because no president before Trump had ever been charged or convicted. Can he vote in November? He can, as long as he is not in prison. Trump's home state of Florida defers to other states' disenfranchisement rules for residents convicted of out-of-state felonies. And New York law removes the right to vote for people convicted of felonies only while they're incarcerated. Once they're out of prison, their rights are automatically restored, even if they're on parole, per a 2021 law passed by the state's Democratic legislature. Trump said Thursday that the real verdict is going to be November 5th by the people, referring to Election Day. It's unclear to what extent his guilty verdict will impact his bid to unseat Biden. The election is expected to be incredibly tight, and it's not clear how voters who are on the fence, especially independents and other key voting blocs, will feel when they go to the polls. Republican lawmakers who have been divided in the past over their support for Trump lined up behind him in the wake of the conviction, slamming the judge and prosecutors. Trump's campaign hopes his supporters will be similarly galvanized by the case, which Trump has cast as an effort to tank his White House bid. His campaign immediately began fundraising off the conviction with messages such as, "I was just convicted in a rigged trial." Another message to supporters read, "If they can do this to me, they can do this to anyone." Trump's campaign said Friday morning that it raised a record $34.8 million in small online contributions off his conviction, nearly double its previous largest haul. Richer reported from Washington. Associated Press journalists Jill Colvin and Luke Sheridan in New York contributed to this report.
As you leave the page, don't forget to hit the like bell and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so as yet. Thank you for watching.